All right. We're back. We're really excited about this week. We met this guest really just
kind of
random chance.
Yeah, serendipitously. It was just through our YouTube channel. We had our short film hero, which we probably talk about too much on the podcast.
Yeah.
Just sitting out there. Something we had shot with the Ursa Mini Pro. And one day we get a contact request on our website from Jamespratt. And James is a very talented and
actor,
multifaceted
producer, business
creative
owner.
guy.
Yes.
Yeah, he wears a lot of hats, and he was researching cameras for a film that he was about to go into production on.
Yeah, so we'll talk all about the film he made and his company that he's part of. We Are Mogul, and they're doing some really cool stuff, and just what he's up to now in general. So without any further ado, here's James.
And here's the man. Welcome, James.
Really appreciate it. Yeah, thanks very much for the nice intro as well, Nathan. And Drew, thanks very much.
And you're in Australia right now, correct?
Yeah, I'm in Australia at the moment. And it was nice that you kind of touched on the film. I basically wrapped filming this feature film about a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And the ironic thing is when we started filming, it seemed like COVID was kind of like a little bit out of control. And now we finished the film and it's kind of like, it seems like nothing's really changed. It's been like a bit of a time machine. Like the rest of the world is kind of, it's still the same, which is scary as well. But yeah, really thankful to be in Australia.
And which part of Australia are you in? Are you in Sydney or Brisbane?
Sydney, Australia. Yeah, Sydney, Australia at the moment.
Okay, cool. So what time is it there? Is it really early for you?
It's not too bad. It's about 5 hours behind LA. It's just the day in front. So it's like 8 o'clock in the morning here. So, you caught me at a great time as well.
Oh, nice.
Now, we'll get into how you filmed the movie, but Australia's pretty locked down, or is Sydney a little bit looser? Because how were you able to finish filming with the lockdowns?
It was really ironic because when we were basically Sydney went into lockdown and then they came out of lockdown and there was all these huge Hollywood productions here like Shang-Chi and The Legend of the Ten Rings. One day it had like 600 extras on the lot at Fox Studios and the next day it was like a ghost town. So it was almost like Sydney went through this kind of like evacuation stage, but a lot smaller population. Australia, it's under control. And things are back up and running now. I mean, we're going into summer, so it's looking a lot more, I think it's a lot more positive, and kind of enjoying that freedom, which in the States, it's looking like it's a little, it's getting a little nuts again.
Yeah, things are kind of going in the opposite direction over here, unfortunately.
Yes.
And
going into winter. So
yeah, and we're going into winter, so everybody's immune systems are going into the toilet. It's not fun.
So I guess we kind of have to.
What a year.
It's been crazy. I guess we have to kind of, for the sake of people watching, ask you an arbitrary question. What's your backstory? How did you get to where you are?
I appreciate you asking like the story, but it might take a very long time to get here.
We got time.
The long and the short of it is I finished high school. I studied at an acting school called NIDA, which is it's a good school, like Mel Gibson, Kate Blanchett, Sam Worthington. There was some really good alumni. And then from film school, I was fascinated to also know what goes on behind the camera. So after graduating, I did quite a bit of study at a place called Afters, which is at Fox Studios in Sydney. Long story short, love being entrepreneurial, put my hand in a couple of different hats, blockchain, real estate. So kind of between the three of these, whether it be, blockchain, real estate, and the film industry, kind of always got projects going. But the basis for that was very much like studying first, learning the craft. And then, obviously LA came after that. And just kind of, just on that sort of ride at the moment.
Interesting. So of all the hats that you wear, what's the one hat that you would say really defines your career?
I think the film industry is probably that, because I feel like that's probably the passion as well. and also it's an industry that's I think you constantly are growing in it. You're constantly on different people's I guess schedules, timeframes, levels, and it's a great way I think to kind of define yourself as constantly improving. And I think you guys, we've talked about this before. It's almost like you're making a feature film or you're making a TV show. It's almost like you want the next one to be better and the one after that to be better. You're constantly building on what you're learning.
That's true. And within the film industry, what are you most drawn to? Do you like directing? Do you like being behind the camera? Or do you like performing?
You know, I'm not going to lie to you, but I'm not as experienced as you guys with the directing. This was my first feature film I just directed. So it was a little bit more of a learning curve, but I feel like from after that experience, you know, it's something that's, you know, enormously passionate for me. The acting's always fun. But I think, you know, I was actually listening to Kevin Connolly talk about it. He had a really good point, which is he'd done Entourage acting, and they were asking, like, why did you know, suddenly want to become a director? And it was because he was sort of saying that, you know, that's his personality. Like, he likes running a business. He likes having that hands-on approach. And I think that's part of growth as well. You know, obviously you're growing in yourself as a director with the stress and with the trials. And I'm enjoying that ride at the moment.
Yeah. Are there any directors that you kind of looked to as your own inspiration for, you know, I mean, if it's your first go, so you're kind of finding your director's voice in a way, you know, who have been some of your influences?
I'm a huge Bobby and Peter Farley fan.
Oh yeah.
Those guys kind of, they come from obviously a writing background, which is really good to see as well. But their style, I think, is great because I've spoken to quite a few people that were on their early productions, and the way in which they operate was very much early on was a very generous way, meaning it wasn't, okay, we're the directors and we've got, you know, Miramax and studios behind us. Do as we tell you. It was very much like, I want to watch what the DP's doing. I want to watch what Mark Irwin's doing. You know, let him do his job and let the sound guys really take over for what's going to be best. And as you're building and you know, delegating the work, you're also learning so that the next time around you can be a little bit more. But you're not going in there with this huge alpha male, you know, kind of, it's my show, my way or the highway, and then everyone hates you after 2 weeks on set. Those guys great. There's an Australian director as well. When I was an actor, I really, her name's Jet Wilkinson. She does quite a bit of producing now in the States and TV shows. But you know, my acting, I remember I did quite a few TV shows in Australia, and she was a really good director because one of the things I noticed with her is that she gave the actor a sense of, from the very beginning, like, I'm on your side. I'm on your side if you've got a problem, rather than report to me, do the scene, and I'll tell you what to do. And I think that was kind of a trait that I took on early, because I think often, you know, everybody's vulnerable on a set, so you want to kind of have a relaxing set.
So those are fantastic. I mean, we don't know the second director, but you know all the attributes you listed. But certainly the Farley brothers. I mean, Dumb and Dumber is one of my favorite comedies.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, great movie. And you guys know the story behind, you know, Jim Carrey and Jeff Daniels getting the pay scale.
Vaguely.
Yeah,
I think I heard it a while ago.
It rings a bell, but maybe you can refresh us.
Yeah, I was going to say, anybody wants some quality reading, and please don't take this as this is not like there may be some. This is going from second tier information I've read many times, but basically they had a chance to sign Jim Carrey for, I think, around 400,000 or 450 at the time, and this is right before Ace Ventura came out, and his agent wanted an extra 100,000 at the time, and they kind of was like, no way, like, we're not going to pay that. And then Ace Ventura came out, #1 movie, and then it slowly went up his box office price to like over $1 million, and there was always this, like, you know, studio versus agent. In the end, I think Jim Carrey got like $7 million, and they could have got him for 450,000.
Oh my!
Someone lost their job.
Yeah. 4 weeks in a row, like Ace Ventura was the #1 movie in America. And it was just that thing where it's like, 1 week delayed with the contract. Oh, it's #1 again. Jim's price has gone up again. Jeff Daniels, I think he got like something unbelievably low because they didn't want him as the role. And he took it anyway for this low price. So it's a very, very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. The movie industry is a really interesting business model. It's, it's constantly in flux. And yeah, it's hard to predict. If anybody really knew exactly what the secret formula was, every movie would be successful.
Yeah.
But that's not the case.
It's something to the effect of the one thing everyone knows in Hollywood is that no one knows anything in Hollywood, right? It's something like that.
Right. Yeah. And there's films that you get green lit and you think that's a shoo-in, that's going to be a great hit. And then it comes straight to, at the time, straight to DVD or quietly released onto a streaming service. And then other films you're thinking, how did this get, such a good one? And it just goes for it.
Yeah, there's just so many factors that you can't control. Yeah. I mean, you can do your best to put the best cast in place and get the best script and everything. But there's some of these intangibles that have to be at play. And sometimes it has to do with, luck, just luck of the draw, right? So like you happen to start developing a film and then you have to do that 2 years before it's going to be released. And then it just so happens the film touches on something that's very relevant in society at that point, right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting how it works.
And you have a really interesting perspective on this because obviously you're an actor, but you also are part of a business that's on the other side of the equation, on the production side. So how do you, I guess maybe this is kind of a broad question, but how do you balance that, because you have your own career as an actor, but then also as a producer?
Yeah, it's a good question because I think at times they don't run together. Like they both have their different challenges and their different wins. I think, how do I manage it? I think the main thing for me is I just love filmmaking and the process behind it. And the idea, we were sort of even talking with what we're talking about with Kevin Connolly was talking about, constantly learning is something that's really important to me. And whether that be constantly learning what's going on in the film industry over in Europe or in Australia or in the US. So I think that constantly learning is something that sort of helps with the behind the scenes thing of being able to constantly be a part of it, even during COVID when there's not a lot of productions. And then the acting side is, look, probably not doing filmmaking. And if there's a project that's, if someone says, hey, do you want to do a web series or, hey, we're doing this short film or this feature film and it's a small part, it's probably going to be better use of my time, perhaps, to be working full time with Mogul, to be doing other stuff. So it's just balancing that time and quality filmmaking is the overall goal at the end of it.
So I guess that's a good segue to talk about Mogul. So can you give us the elevator pitch of what is this company about and how are they innovating in the space of film financing?
Yeah, it's a really good way of kind of lending into what's going on in filmmaking right now. Mogul is a film financing and production company, basically using blockchain technology to not only enhance the experience for those people looking at seeing what goes on behind Hollywood and being a part of it, but the real critical thing is obviously for the investor as well. A great way to kind of, I suppose, articulate the situation with Mogul is, if I said to you guys, hey, let's go and invest in Mission Impossible 8, it's going to be a really hard track to actually get in there. Between the contracts that are already signed up, the roadmap that's there, you'd need to know people inside to actually get a deal. It does make it a little bit like for the person that wants to invest in Hollywood, how do I get in? Like, how do I actually be a part of this? Because as you guys know really well, you can definitely go on crowdfunding sites right now and, you can invest in productions, but they're probably not going to be productions that are going to get a theatrical release, or they're probably not going to get productions that are going to have, top tier talent or, behind the scenes crew. So Mogul's aim is to basically give those people an opportunity to not only have a fairer way of being able to invest, but also to be able to have access to it as well. The blockchain technology is a huge part of that, because obviously, you don't have to be into that industry to know the benefits of just having much more transparency. If I invest $1 million into this film and it's a studio film, I don't want to hear that, the studio's end budget is 16 million and the initial budget was 6 million, and they just said that all the money was inflated because it rained for a week. The blockchain technology allows, look, I put $1 million in, I know exactly where it's going, I know exactly what I'm going to get out, and I know exactly at what particular point the other money is coming in for. And I think that's really something that benefits everybody, because as a filmmaker as well, that's going to allow you to be a little bit more accountable for actually making a film on budget, rather than, okay, well, yeah, let's just use 600 extras. You know what? We didn't need that scene. So that's a little bit of the elevator pitch to give you guys a snapshot. Blockchain technology allowing the investor and also those people that wanting an inside look into Hollywood as a fan. You can vote on films, you can vote what gets made, and we're just scratching the surface on basically power of the crowd. The ability now, Deadpool was a great example. They used power of the crowd to get that lifted off the ground. Obviously, Ryan Reynolds putting online, different snippets, obviously what Deadpool was, to get that audience online very excited. And the same time as well, looking at, Sonic was another example. They leaked the trailer. They hated parts of it. The crowd spoke. They retweaked it, and then they released it again. So it's utilizing the audience in a way to make sure the film is obviously what people want to see, but also to make sure obviously it's profitable as well.
Interesting. So did you guys have to create your own blockchain token? and which blockchain did you build it on?
You know what? That's exactly as you said. Basically, we basically, the technology that we've got is a world first. There is going to be a token coming up, like a token sale for people to be able to get on the stars. And it's going to be probably, I'm not going to put a date exactly in case things are happening, but stay tuned by the end of this year.
Oh, cool.
There'll be something to come up. Yeah. Recently, wanting to kind of merge it where you have really great people from Hollywood involved in the production company. So obviously Cindy Cowan, Oscar nominated, Emmy winner, David Cormican, Emmy winner, Emmy nominated, Piers Tempest, advisory board, some really good Hollywood people mixed with some of the best blockchain people from around the world. So it's not like blockchain guys trying to get into film production, and it's not Hollywood trying to get into blockchain. It's basically people staying in their lane at the best of what they do to have the same goal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I have to imagine. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, and you guys have got some experience. I saw Hoodle was an amazing film for, I think, $1.79.
HODL.
Yeah.
HODL, yeah, that was it. Sorry, yeah.
HODL is like a crypto term for just hold on to your coins.
Hold on to those coins.
I think it's like a typo from someone's tweet. I don't know.
It was a Reddit thread, I'm pretty sure. Well, yeah, we're both investors in crypto, but we were really fascinated from a dramatic angle about the fact that Bitcoin shot up in price so much in value, over the course of just a decade, that what would happen if somebody had actually purchased a small amount of Bitcoin, passed it on to somebody else like as an inheritance, and now it's worth an exponentially higher amount of money, right? And then what would happen if that would also happen to be a really incompetent guy?
Yeah. So yeah, we did get some critiques that it's more secure than we made it look, but I mean that was for dramatic purposes. This is the crowdfunding aspect. Have you guys done a project with the crowdfunding aspect of the company yet, or are you doing more traditional financing at this point?
It's a really good question, because what we want to offer essentially is the objective going forward is for anyone around the world can invest in a Hollywood production. obviously with the Hollywood at the moment, slates have been obviously, put on pause, or they've been, indefinitely just left to wait till it's more feasible to shoot, especially in the US. So with the way in which we're circling at the moment, Mogul's looking for productions to take on themselves, obviously with their own finance, to then produce the film and allow those people to be able to follow the experience, to perhaps invest in the film, a bit like gap financing, in the sense of you can get your money returned, but also just to be a part of the process, because there's a lot of people out there that maybe they don't want to invest in a film, but they just love seeing the process of the film being made. So Mogul wants to give that opportunity on the platform. You have then the investor, or it might be, okay, you know what, I have $5,000 and I'd love to basically put that into this film. I can see this actor's attached. So that's another aspect to be able to lean on. And the other aspect as well is giving an opportunity for those people in the industry to network as well. So the other aspect with the Mogul platform is to allow those people, whether you're in London as a screenwriter, whether you're in Hollywood as an actress, or in Australia as a director, the ability to be able to network as well. So all three have their points, and I think everybody perhaps goes through different stages as well. Some people might be looking at investing in a film, and some people might just be wanting to have a really, I suppose, a more of an up-close view on the process of a product being made. And all on the blockchain allows you to be able to see the product being made, rather than, like we were going back to, look, if I give $1 million in this Hollywood production, I'm going off their word that it'll be made in 12 months' time, and this is where the money's going.
Yeah. Now, for the filmmakers out there who are watching this or listening, is there opportunity for them to get in touch with you guys and submit scripts, or how are you guys going about seeing material that you might be interested in producing?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the exciting things with Mogul, is the opportunity for someone that's got a script to be able to send it in, and knowing that it's going to be critiqued. Because I think one of the biggest things is when you do see these platforms and someone says, "Oh, send me a script," you can have an Emmy-winning writer in Hollywood sends through a treatment or a script that he's trying to get funded, and then you have, let's say, a college kid, critiquing it. Like, what is the water level that's going there? So with Mogul, like I said, David, #1 show in Canada in Northern Rescue TV, Cindy Cowan, I think she won an Emmy earlier this year, only 3 months ago. There's some good people there that look at the script curation, and then obviously there's a short list made. So you might send in let's say a script and say, hey, it's partly packaged, I've got a director attached, or I've got a director and a writer. And basically Mogul, you send in the script creation, you can do that. It'll make it into the short list, and then it'll be put up for the crowd to basically vote on it being made, or Mogul will go ahead and make it. So it's send it in. The website mogulproductions.com, you'll be able to see that there's a contact opportunity all through there, info@mogulproductions.com. But don't be afraid as well. Like the point of it is don't be afraid to sort of, if you've got an idea and you want to get it off the ground, if you haven't had success somewhere else, it might land with Mogul as well. Again, it's always confidential as well what you send into. It's it's a professional route in the way you're going with sending it in.
Any particular genres you guys are trying to define yourself by? Like, are you trying to be like an A24 type studio, or are you a little more mainstream?
I think the initial route will be in indies, in that sort of up to sort of $5 million range. But we're talking today, and that could suddenly swap over to being a lot more or a lot less. But the goal is to make films that people want to see, and to allow that process to be fun as well. So right now, COVID obviously dictates, you've seen there's quite a few slates of horror films getting greenlit at the moment, purely based on the fact that, you don't need a crowd scene. There's less COVID insurance if it's going to be shot in this state. It's pretty much a little bit like Hollywood. What is going around? What are the distributors wanting? What is in at the moment?
So I have a couple questions. One is, What are you and other producers doing since the theatrical model is sort of put on hold to get distribution and to make money from films? And then the second follow-up question is, what is the future of the theatrical model?
It's a really interesting question, Nick, because I've been chatting to a ton of producers during filming with Malibu Crush, and I've got a different answer. Like, I've got a different answer with like different companies at times. Probably something that stood out for me to get distribution with your first question. Very, very big company in the States. Talking with them many, many times, one particular guy there. And he said to me, he gave me a really interesting story. He said, look, there was a really well-touted drama that got shot end of last year. They signed up for distribution, theatrical release in 2020. It's a heavy drama with a coming of age appeal. So, guy loses his house, guy loses his job, falls asleep, his house burns down. And that is the point of redemption. He has to lose everything before he can go back up again. Well-known actor in a great piece for the cinema. But obviously, everything's closed down right now. They're not going to release it. The team behind the film was not too worried. They kind of said, well, that's fine. You guys got us a theatrical release in 2020. 2021, when COVID obviously turns the corner, we'll do the big launch then. We're working on our next project. And he just said, look, that's not going to happen. He said, it's not going to happen because once the vaccine comes out and the cinemas obviously reopen, people are not going to want to see their house burned down and people, falling by the wayside and going through. They're going to want to see rainbows and lollipops. So one of the key things that this particular distribution company, they said is, look, if you're trying to get distribution, give us something that people are going to want to see post-coronavirus. Give us sunshine, beach, volleyball, things that they want to actually do that they haven't done in a while. And if that film is not necessarily completely, rainbows and lollipops, think about, adding in or reshooting some scenes that actually can be put in the trailer to give it a little bit of light. So even if it's a drama film, don't shoot the whole thing inside because everyone's just spent the last year inside. Or if it's a comedy film, don't rely on it looking like a sitcom, or try and give us something like, golf course, tennis court. Give us something that makes it pop a little bit more. So I thought that was a very interesting perspective because that was echoed with several other distributors of, let's think in the future. Let's think what people are going to want to see rather than right now, which is more a survival mentality. Another really interesting thing to get distribution is just asking, what are you looking for right now? And that binge audience right now, like you guys know as well, it's almost like a perfect storm for streamers because you have everybody's forced to stay home, in some capacity or have less work, so they have time. And you have people that technically maybe wouldn't be binge watchers getting into the habit of binge watching to basically stay sane. Like if I'm going to have to stay in lockdown, if I'm going to have to work from home, I'm going to need something. When that changes and things get a bit more normal, you're going to see that people are suddenly going to have to make more money. They're not going to have money to watch, 4 or 5 of these streaming services or have subscriptions. They're not going to have the time to sit and binge. So from a distribution point of view, when you're getting the distribution, asking like, what is your time frame? Like, am I going to be one of these products that gets launched on Netflix while there's the binge audience there with COVID? Or am I going to be one of the post-COVID, which is going to have obviously that slight drop off? So I think that's a good question to ask as well. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, there was a really interesting article, and I should send it to you when we're done here. Maybe even link in the comments. It's that one that Jane sent over.
Yeah.
And it was a guy who's a lawyer in Hollywood. He might be a manager. I'm not sure. I think it's a lawyer. And he was kind of predicting, this was a few months ago, and he was kind of projecting out into the future and going, what's going to change? And when he was talking about the theatrical model, he was talking about how a lot of them are already kind of on the edge of bankruptcy. And there's this kind of old school law in place about studios not being able to own theaters because it creates a monopoly. And how with streaming the way it is, that's kind of an antiquated law. And so he thinks that once that law is done away with, studios are going to be able to buy their own theater chains. And he was talking about, like, imagine a Disney owned theater chain, right? So where you go to the theater and the whole thing is an end-to-end experience, as opposed to just the going in and seeing the film. There's characters in the lobby. There's a gift shop with Disney merchandise and that sort of thing. And it might actually incentivize people to get out off the couch with the family and go invest in, the ticket prices and all of that to go have a full experience at the theater, or Amazon buying its own theater chain, for example. So that was one particularly interesting idea about what the future might hold.
That's fascinating, because they're basically creating a one-stop experience, aren't they?
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was an interesting idea.
It seems like a logical next step with where these companies are at. I don't personally see these theater chains pulling out of this.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, other than to partner with streaming
The
services.
margins are already so thin for a lot of theaters, during normal times, that during COVID it's just been really, really rough. And I mean, I know that Regal here is struggling. The biggest one is not Landmark. What's the
AMC?
You guys think AMC?
Yeah, AMC. I know that they're struggling. So something's going to change. And then we've talked about before that as far as the way movies are made is probably going to have to change quite a bit. And you guys seem to be right on target with this with Mogul. But movies are going to have to be made for cheaper. There's just so much content. There's so many options for people. Mm-hmm. Obviously, your tentpole movies will remain for probably a long time, the Marvel type films that are made for $250 million. But, I think the productions are going to have to be scaled down, but not the stories. And there are a lot of innovations happening within the industry that are going to allow for that to happen. Not only coming from the indie space, but you look at like what Jon Favreau and those guys are doing with The Mandalorian, and the way that all these exteriors are being shot in these interior locations, where they can move the sun, where they can shoot at dusk for 12 hours straight or whatever. It's fascinating, and that kind of stuff is going to trickle down to the masses, I think, of filmmakers eventually.
Yeah. One thought we've both. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just agree. I agree with everything you're saying, and I think that's rapidly happening at the moment, because everybody's being forced to think outside the box quickly with COVID, and I think that filters onto like a feature film.
Mm-hmm. One thought we've both had too, as far as like the future of movies, these streaming services, as far as pulling in new customers, it seems like miniseries do it a lot more effectively than a one-off film. So something like Stranger Things is going to pull in a much larger set of new customers than a Stranger Things single movie, which is sort of a positive and a negative, it seems like, because then that means that, mid-budget movies kind of go the way of the dinosaur completely on streaming services, but it opens the door for really specific movies for really specific audiences, which is a good thing for indie film. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that's going to happen as far as movie budgets continue to go down, and then something like Wonder Woman 1984 is going straight to streaming? I mean, are movie budgets going to have to go down?
Yeah, you know what? I think it lends really well on one of the things that Mogul's really passionate about is the power of the crowd. Like, what do people want to see made before it gets made? An idea that you could probably think over makes sense from a business model is if you could 10,000 people voting for one film to be made and 35,000 people voting for another one to be made. As an investor, you'd think, okay, well, the movie that's got 35,000 people wanting to see it made, that seems like it's a lot more of a safeguard. Gets made, these people want to see it. And I haven't had to take that huge risk of, okay, well, I put this actor in it, and then that actor has a scandal, and then all the P&A is ruined, and it's almost like a year of us biting our fingernails. I think, to answer your question, Nate, I think you're going to see a lot more of specific films being made, and I think the best way to safeguard that is obviously to have power of the crowd, or to put an offering up. Like Mogul, obviously, one of the ways they're going to obviously say is, let's say in the showcase, there'll be four films that are finalists to be made. And the audience can vote based on a trailer of each and what is the treatment. So strategically, you're making your investment a lot more safer, but the audience, you sometimes can't pick it as well, because I know there's films that have been greenlit in Hollywood for monster budgets, and you think, is this a film being made because it's actually got a fan audience, or is this because they know something we don't that's going to happen in the future? Like, there's obviously a lot of changes happening in the last 12 months with everything from politics to the way people view things. So I think it's an interesting conversation. And to kind of go back to your final point, yeah, I think budgets are going to come down. I think they're going to come down because you're taking away the studio inflation system and getting straight to what the audience wants, how much it's going to cost to get shot, and let's get it out on a timely basis so that audience is still relevant.
And so Malibu Crush, we love that you made a movie this year. It's incredible.
Right,
like
thanks.
No one's doing it. So how did you get this done? What was the budget? How did you work around COVID rules? Tell us all about it.
It was basically my dream plan was, I was in LA starting the year, and I had this plan in my head. You know what? I'm going to come back to Australia, shoot Malibu Crush in April, and then I'll fly back to LA, and I'll be back in LA for summer. So 2-3 months shooting. It'll be in post, and I'll be back in LA in summer. And then obviously I came back to Australia sort of mid-March. COVID hit, and seemed because Australia was a little more sheltered. I was giving you the story with Shanghai and the legend. Destin, who's the director there, he's walking around Fox Studios every day like there's nothing wrong. Then Tom Hanks suddenly gets COVID up on the Gold Coast shooting Elvis, and it starts to spiral. And we come 12 hours away from shooting Malibu Crush. And then the government here says, you know what, everyone's going to go into lockdown. And it was at that point where you're like, well, my hands are tied. Like, there's nothing I can do. I can't even go back to the States. Like, we're just trapped on the island, like that TV show Lost.
Are you Matthew Fox in this scenario?
Yeah.
Probably like at the beginning. Yeah, like at the beginning before he becomes a little more desperate. Yeah.
Yeah. When he becomes completely unlikable at the end of the show.
That's me later on. So pretty much we lose our finance, our budget. A lot of the wheels fall off because locations have been locked in. And like I said, my strategic plan was to be back in LA, so I wasn't even thinking I'd be here. Come the end of August, and there's word that in Australia, like people are starting to shoot things, either indie stuff on the down low, or studios and networks are starting to shoot stuff here with, COVID rules, like number of people in the room, COVID insurance, things like that. And with very, very little budget, we basically like, let's just shoot this film, met with the core team. Let's just shoot the film. Let's call in favors. One of the reasons why I was so impressed with you guys is because originally we were shooting with the Ari Mini, and that lost with the budget. And we were then looking at, okay, what can we get hands on? And a guy I know has a Blackmagic, and I had never really worked with the Blackmagic, and I looked at your film Hero, and I was like, you guys must have shot that on like a Red or an Ari. Like, it's so good. And that's where I was really kind of blown away when you guys were like, no, we end up using the same lenses you guys used. We ain't pretty much the same.
Cool.
And that was another, segment in itself. You don't need to have $150,000 camera to suddenly shoot your film, which, some line producers will tell you have to, or you have to get distribution by using it. You don't. So basically we shoot Malibu Crush September, October, and then, we wrapped about a week ago, a little bit slower because of COVID. And also, there's putting the pieces together, but it's a buddy comedy, very much like Something About Mary meets Dumb and Dumber meets The Hangover. So
fun, beautiful. There
was one of the actresses actually spoke to the media and called it a rom-com. And a really lovely love story. I think everybody's going to be surprised if it's a rom-com. It's actually, yeah, I heard someone who was shooting on a golf course and someone's kid was watching up near the clubhouse, and I went up and the person was like, "Oh, my son was watching you guys make Dumb and Dumber 3," and I was kind of thinking, that's your observation from today, and it's not even one of the strategically commented scenes. So it's been a really fun ride. But like I said, one of the real takeaways was just pivoting to be able to shoot something in 2020 without the original budget, with the goal to finish it and to basically, use that as a real experience to build on.
Yeah, well, that's great. I mean, the Ursa Mini Pro is a camera we swear by. We've shot several shorts with it, and we'd love to shoot a feature. In fact, Blackmagic now has a 12K camera that they've come out with. I don't know if you've seen that, but that thing looks really phenomenal.
Really, really sweet.
Yeah, and we had a guy, Vance Burberry, on a few weeks ago who has been shooting a lot with it, and he just loves it. And the kind of detail that you can get, the kind of options you have in post, being able to reframe, shooting at those kinds of resolutions, it's phenomenal. And a camera like that is also totally Netflix approved. A lot of people think, like you said, James, a lot of people think you got to shoot on Alexa or you got to shoot on a Red, but you can shoot on something like a Blackmagic camera, and it's
with no discernible difference.
Yeah, I mean, to the average Joe, there's no difference at all.
No.
And even to the trained eye, I think a lot of DPs would have a hard time being able to spot the differences between.
And LED lights and all kinds of technology have allowed you to do a movie without a professional gaffer. You can just plug a light into a wall. I mean, things are changing really, really fast.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an interesting conversation, you guys. Sorry to bring up, because I was speaking to a really experienced DP on exactly what you guys are saying, Nate, with the lights, and he kind of said to me, he said right now, like he's, not shooting anything in LA at the moment, but he's usually pretty, he's on 2-3 films at a time. And he said right now, he's like, if I'm shooting something and it's below a studio level, I'm always saying to them, look, you can save money by not using a Red or not using the ARRI, and give me an extra gaffer and I'll make the Blackmagic look like this, or give me, and it just goes that little bit further with the budget that you can get, which you can't usually get if you're, especially for, say, an independent filmmaker. You blow all your money on just the camera, and then you have a terrible gaffer, or you stretched at the locations for time. It's like, you need to think about where the money's going and how it can work.
Oh, 100%.
100%.
Yeah.
What kind
Sorry, you go. Sure.
I was just going to ask you, you said you were going at a little bit of a slower pace, this being an independent film. How many pages a day were you guys able to do?
So the script was 102 pages. We were probably shooting at our best. We're probably shooting four scenes a day, trying to pick up as much coverage as we can. So maybe, dream scenario, 6, 7, 8 shots within the scenes. But the thing that slowed us down a lot, which you kind of notice, is obviously the fact that we weren't shooting like 3 weeks straight or 4 weeks straight, and you get in that rhythm. I mean, you ask me what we would do differently next time. Obviously, post-COVID, one of the reasons we couldn't just do 3-4 weeks straight was obviously because of the COVID restrictions. But there's a difference between shooting, say, 3-4 days a week and then picking it up the next week, then going, right, we're just, basically we're all going to get on the gym class. We're all going to get really fit. We're all just going to basically be on the same cycle of for 4 weeks straight. We're shooting day in, day out, which I think is, something obviously, filmmakers want to do if they can.
Okay. Other question about the production. It's obviously called Malibu Crush, and you didn't shoot it in Malibu. So how are you pulling that off? Were you shooting exteriors? Did you shoot some exteriors in Malibu that you're going to put into the film, or are you faking stuff in post?
Yeah, so we've got obviously the second unit, a guy over in LA who's shooting exteriors for us, mainly just montages, establishing shots, to give it that authenticity. And then in Australia, we really, we've been pretty lucky. We found a couple locations that actually look just dead set, like West Hollywood, Sunset, which has been great, especially now coming into summer as well, where, obviously the light's great there around magic hour. So it's been a matter of cheating stuff. And then obviously the second unit cinematographer over there, he's obviously getting us the establishing stuff. Dream scenario, we would have shot both in LA and Australia, but we can just, Australia's been great. Sydney's been great so far to fake as much as we can.
That's awesome. I mean, way to pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things I will ask as well, like when you guys were shooting Hero with the Black Magic, I mean, what was some of the tips you guys had that kind of helped it look so good?
We had a pretty straightforward approach when we shot. I mean, we like to move quickly. I think our priority is to keep a momentum going on the set for everybody involved. We really hate getting bogged down with the tech because that kind of seems to suck the wind out of the set. And the actors' performances maybe start to suffer if you're over there constantly fiddling with the cameras and the grip and all of that. So we basically were shooting with, maybe a bounce board and an 8x8 diffusion with a butterfly frame, and very, very few lights. We used lights in the very first scene, but other than that, I don't think we ever used any lights at all.
It seems like most of the time, if you just keep it simple with lighting, if you're outdoors, let the sun be, let the subject be backlit and bounce in, it's going to look pretty good. And really with any camera. And the dynamic range on the Ursa is very good. It's like 15 stops, so they say. So you can get a really nice image with such a simple setup. You can go, we've talked about this last week, you can go to Home Depot in the States here and get a piece of foam board for like $20, cut it out, and there's your bounce board. So it's not expensive or hard to get a nice look with the camera.
Yeah, it was just kind of about location scouting as much as anything. Like finding a good location, figuring out where the sun's going to be while you're shooting, and that's how you figure out your setups. And the sun is, and obviously if the weather's on your side, the sun's your best friend. Yeah. The best light that exists. And so you just use that to your advantage.
And you had to do this, and you just described the same thing, which is to sort of find locations that work as they are, so that you're not having to spend a lot in production design. It's sort of like a documentary meets filmmaking hybrid, where you're just like finding locations that work, so you're not having to bring in all these props and all this extra set dressing.
Exactly. And I think that's where kind of like when you say getting bogged down with the tech, I feel like the great way to make an indie film look really good is to basically have the location already dressed, meaning we were really fortunate we could get a car dealership one day, which, again, you basically put the Black Magic and you obviously set it up, but you look at that background and that's better time spent than going into like a room and then, okay, we have to put the picture there. We have to get rid of the white walls. We have to make sure that, it looks lived in and 3-4 hours of art direction, and you still just get like a room. So we one of the ways we kind of tried to pump up the production value is we shot on a golf course, and obviously the Black Magic loves greens and that kind of like, basically once you put a grade on that looks really beautiful. Car dealership, montage footage of LA, Bondi Beach. Some people might think, wow, this is a lot of locations, but I feel like that is better value than simply just renting a house for a week and constantly trying to dress it each day.
Now we live and work in Idaho, so for us, locations are pretty easy to come by. You go down to a gas station, you ask the owner. They've never had anything filmed in their store. They're totally cool with it.
Yeah.
Is it that way in Sydney? Or Sydney is a big enough place.
Is it saturated over there?
Is it saturated where people are like, I don't want you to film in my store? Or are they pretty open?
Yeah, it's the latter one. Yeah.
Good.
It's a really big city. I mean, there's nearly 5 million people here, and there's a lot of, I think the best way to look at it is, people are not enchanted by the idea of filming here. They would be in different other locations. I completely relate to what you guys are saying because, I've had experience as well, especially when you get into a more say rural, but just more rare people down to earth. Like they're interested because they're interested. We struggled quite a bit with Sydney because obviously like there's a lot of films get shot here from overseas as well. So there's a little bit like, well, if you're going to shoot here, you know, it's going to cost us this much money to stop. Yeah, we found a couple of real gems hidden. You know, there was a place, a golf course, which was pretty funny actually, because the guy, I kept waiting for the butt, you know, like he's like, I'll give you guys golf cats, you know, I'll give you guys, top you up on drinks every day. Like, oh, you want the fourth hole? I'll tell all the members they can't play there today. And I kept feeling like, but you're going to have to compensate us with this, or you're going to have to. This guy was just amazing, Leighton, the GM. He went out of his way, and I'll never forget, he's the GM of this exclusive golf course. And he drives down in one of the carts. He's given us a bunch of them, and we're just, again, we're like jumping these carts into like the sand bunkers, breaking all the rules, right? And I'm thinking like, he's come to tell us off because we've taken advantage of this nice nature. We're driving the golf carts on the greens, and he comes down, and I'm thinking, okay, here we go. And he comes down, he's like, oh, listen, I just wanted to see if you guys wanted me to get you any coffees. I'm thinking like, what a great guy. Like, he's the GM of this thing. And he said, like, I just love the fact you guys are doing something creative and you're going for it.
Yeah.
There's another place called Wingmill, which is an American restaurant in Sydney. And the guy's like, I'll give you the keys. Any day we finish the restaurant here, sometimes an open Monday, just give you the keys. Help yourself to root beer. And it's like, you know, you find people like that. You're like, wow, you know.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And finding people like that is one of the keys to being able to pull off, you know, a higher production value piece with a lower budget. Yeah, you just it's a lot more about the research and the connections that you make, and being a decent person to work with yourself, right? Like that's important. There's been a few times around here even that we've gone into a location to ask about shooting there, but some filmmaker who came before gave them a very bad experience, and so they've messed it up for the people who come afterwards.
Yeah, you were just talking about, or someone just told us about this YouTube channel that they were going to all the national parks and they had a drone and they were getting this really cool drone footage, and then someone tattled on them because you're not allowed to film in the national parks. And the reason you're not allowed to film in the national parks in the U.S. is because someone crashed a drone into Old Faithful in Yellowstone, into the actual geyser. So
it screwed it up for everybody.
If you're a filmmaker, you know, be courteous if you get a free location.
Yeah, think about those who are coming behind you.
You want to develop a good reputation. You want to develop a good reputation as a film community, that you are courteous and you take care of the property.
But it sounds like you guys have done just that. Like,
not talking about you.
You guys are, you know, obviously creating good experiences for these business owners you're working with.
I mean, besides jumping golf carts into sand bunkers.
Yeah, besides that part.
and that'll be left on the cutting room floor. You know.
Yeah.
No one has to know about that. You know what? I think as a filmmaker as well, one of the ways you can use that to your advantage as well is obviously to leverage the audience that they have. So, like, an example is, you know, we shot at this place called Wingmill, which is an American restaurant bar, and they were so cool. You know, they were like, obviously, you know, there's the LA side of it, and they're like, you know, obviously we love to get behind this sort of thing, and they asked us, like, what can we do to help you? And I think as a filmmaker, one of the best ways, because we ran a pretty open kind of EPK, like social media during the filming, on the basis that we didn't have that traditional business model with making a film where it's like, we're going to shoot, then we've got all this P&A money, and then we're going to release press releases and kind of do it. We were like, we're probably going to shoot. And we sort of had some bites for distribution right before we started shooting. But we're going to have so much more leverage as we're shooting when we can say, hey, look at our fans building on social media. So one of the ways to leverage that is obviously these guys have a really solid social media account, and they were like, oh yeah, like if you send us content, we'll tell people, you know, come on down, you guys are filming, or you're putting us in your film, let us use that content for our social media. And kind of notice the follows that we get, especially on Instagram, a lot of them were basically the locations, getting behind the film, doing oh great, these guys are filming here today, and then people are like, oh wow, yeah, that's my local place I go have a drink at, or this is the golf course I shoot at, or this is the car dealership. And I think as a filmmaker, if you're strategic, some of these places you shoot at, they have huge fan bases.
Mm-hmm.
And shooting a film is like a novelty. It's like, wow, like, my school I shoot at, or wherever, it's part of a movie. And then they get behind the film, which is great to kind of leverage when you're talking to a distributor of why is your film different, or what is the risk free that I'm, investing in? Well, I have all these fans.
You're hitting on something that I know we're thinking the same thing that we're very passionate about, and that's this idea of grassroots marketing. And it's like you said, integrating the local businesses and the people who are passionate about a certain location, a certain part of the place that you're shooting, to get behind the production.
It was a major driving factor in the film we just finished writing, because we knew it's going to be small budget. We want to leverage as many people as possible, so we wrote it so that it happens in in Georgia with a tax break in place, that most of it could be filmed there, and then it would travel across the country, and you could film at the most beautiful places in each state, leverage the social media account of each state, and cool places, restaurants, communities that are all what you're talking about. And it's so cool to hear someone else have the same idea, and that it helped you build the account for Malibu Crush.
And I think it's so easy to do as well, because I mean, there was a film that I know really well that a couple of years ago was shot, and I was one of the actors in it. And the team behind it was like, no social media, no photos on set, nothing. And I remember when they were kind of like it got released, the film, and the social media account had like 200 followers, and it was almost embarrassing, because it was like, even though the film was done well, it was like, online, it was not validated. And I knew that that's obviously a conversation that distributors would have had as well, because they're looking at it like it's a business as well. And so if you're able to include that for no extra cost, the thing I might add to that as well is what really got us kind of like a lot of traction is that with some of the businesses, especially Wingmill Restaurant, which is the guys that kind of let us shoot there, it worked well for the script to write that into the script, meaning in the script, these guys are pretending to shoot a very highly esteemed TV commercial for this bar. And we said, look, we'll put Wingmill as the bar. And if you think down the track, these guys are going to use that snippet of the film, which says, oh, like this is Wingmill Restaurants, they're going to use that snippet for the next 5 years. So it's almost like viral marketing in the sense of they're going to use the footage that you've got in the film, and then people are going to want to see the film as well. It's a great way to be able to get a lot further of a marketing stretch.
Oh, it's so true. I love it. I love the forward thinking there.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to plug before we start wrapping it up?
I'm keen to hear what you guys have got coming up next as well, because I'm a huge fan, as I've told you before, of all your productions. Everything you do is very slick, and
thank you.
The next thing you do, I'm sure will be great.
Well, yeah, like Nate said, we just finished up a screenplay, and we are just now getting it out into the world, and talking to some producers, and just sent it off to our agent just a few days ago. And so that's a project that we're really excited about. The premise, we could talk about the premise, is basically, like Nate said, it's about a guy who's golfing across America. And it's a bit of a traveling road trip movie.
Yeah, he's golfing across America, and he's trying to do it in under 40,000 strokes.
Yeah. So, and it's a bit of a comedy. It's a bit of a family film, an adventure film. The kinds of movies we loved as kids. Just a guy with a lofty, impossible goal, average Joe, trying to pull something off like that, and also just seeing the beautiful, American countryside along the way. So that's a film that we're going to try to get off the ground, very, very soon. That's going to get all of our efforts. So
you're shooting on the Black Magic, or you guys get a swap of the gear?
Yeah, I guess it just really depends on how on who picks it up, and I think it's kind of a malleable concept. So it's something that we could probably shoot at a smaller budget, And if that were the case, shooting it on, we talked about the Blackmagic Ursa 12K would be an awesome way to capture the American countryside. And then also, it could be shot for a much higher budget with bigger actors too. It can go both ways. So we're open to either. So yeah, we have
our 3 wrap-up questions that we sent you. So I think this has sort of been covered, but what's the best way to make and distribute content in the new post-COVID world? And this could be a short answer because I know we've talked a lot about this.
I think just what you can make, go for it straight away. Meaning, like, the best content is content that you can make immediately. If you've got a camera, if you've got a gas station, if you've got just get it out there. And the best way to distribute, I think it's much easier online than to try and hold off on the cinemas, like you said. So many streamers out there, so many obviously different routes that your film will land. Whether it be VOD, Netflix, and they're all interested to at least have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Great answer.
What are 3 ways filmmakers can access capital to make films?
I would definitely say look out for Mogul Productions, because that's going to also be a very transparent way as well, rather than, I need a friend of a friend of a friend to intro me to somebody. Definitely Mogul. I think another way to get capital would be to present it as a product placement. So there's a few, if you look at the way sports teams are working now, they're doing a lot of behind the scenes series to actually promote a product or the launch of, the next Nike shoe. It's not just a 30-second TVC. It's a online, 3-part series. How did the shoe get made? I think if you can incorporate some sort of product placement, which can really just cut away a lot of your budget, I think that's a really smart way to do it. And then I think the third way is to just look at what you can shoot and look at that as a stepping stone to get more money. Meaning, if your dream is to shoot a $15 million Western film, but you could technically shoot a 100,000K film about the Banksy's or something, which is all shot in one location. Take that $100,000 film, shoot it, show someone you can finish it, and then ask for the 15 million. I think that's a route that a lot of people sometimes forget. It's not the one and only film you ever make. It's sometimes you have to take a stepping stone.
That's a great answer.
Yeah.
And the last one, this is going to be difficult for you because you do so many things. What job in the real world is most like yours?
I got that question. I still can't answer it. I really can't answer that. I guess it's really hard. It's super hard.
Yeah.
Every day's different. I was going to say, let's go back to the TV show Lost. I'm trying to get off the island.
Yeah. Oh man, that is a great answer.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. I mean, thank you, James. It was a fantastic chat. And
at the time, yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so we'll wrap this one up here. We just want to thank everybody for joining us today, and thanks to our guest James Pratt. If you want to check out more about what James is up to, we'll link to the social media down below. We'll also link to the Mogul Productions website. Yep. Obviously, you heard it right here. They're looking for scripts. They're looking for filmmakers to work with, and also join as a financing partner with them.
Well, we'll see you guys next week.